9:00.
All right, we're going to call the executive committee order. I'm looking for a motion to
I'll move to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
question on the agenda. Not all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
About our minutes of the July.
I'll move to adopt them as presented.
I'll second.
Discussion on the minutes.
Aye.
Anyone has any conflicts of interest, let us know when we get to that matter. Any public comments? Any up there? If there is, and someone, they're gonna send them down if they credit it. Any supervisors not seated as committee members that have any information? Committee?
Right now?
It'd probably be better to talk.
Okay. This resolution 3821. There's a grassroots effort in all 72 Wisconsin counties to ask the people of Wisconsin to support a veto-proof effort to make sure ballots, votes, and voters are treated the same across Wisconsin. And the question is, is getting a question put on the November election, asking the voters, should the Wisconsin legislature prepare and place on the statewide ballot a constitutional amendment requiring that election administration, access to ballots, and counting of ballots be nearly uniform as practical. We believe voters are more likely to participate in elections if they believe their vote matters, and it constitutionally protects the voting process. And we think it will increase people's faith in the elections. So it's just looking at, we all know they voted differently in Madison and Milwaukee than they did up here in Polk County. During some of these elections, they don't handle the process, doesn't work the same. Even between polling locations, sometimes we see things are different. I mean, I had, for example, in Polk County, I had one person who worked at a polling location here in Polk County, and everybody had an enormously amount of absentee ballots this time. And at our polling location, when absentee ballots come in, the envelope was opened and the ballots were put into a ballot box, a locked ballot box. And this other polling location, where a woman I know was a poll worker, their ballots, they just threw them on the floor in a pile. And then they took care of it later. And, so this is to make sure things like that don't happen, that it's clear to all the clerks the process that they're supposed to follow, and ensuring that people do follow that process. So that's what this is about. Questions? Ask questions.
No, we can ask questions or have a conversation if anyone has anything.
I wanted to look at the thing. I'd be more interested in what our clerk says than what the referendum says. About what's the problem with our voting system here? And what is the comparison between this, Milwaukee, Madison? Does it have any connection? I was just looking at this briefly. I haven't seen it.
Those are all good questions. Do you want me to speak to it when we get to number 12, or do you want me to do it?
Or I think just be prepared to address that at a county level.
Yep.
I can give you one example.
I don't need examples. I need
So
I need from our clerk.
the bigger city, the bigger cities, Milwaukee and Madison, they have a central count system because they are so big. I am not familiar with the nuances and the ins and outs of that since I am newer. I'm, still working on finding all the nuances with our program, with the way that we do things there. But there is a central count, and Wisconsin Elections Commission does outline things very, very strategically. So I would find it hard to believe that things aren't set up very, very organized and step by step there. That being said, as Supervisor Kelly said, there are slight differences, I'm sure, between polling places, that sort of thing. We did review this at the clerk's office, and we have some, there's some vagueness within the resolution. We were also wondering about possibly breaking it into 2 resolutions so that our office would have a little bit more direction on what to do with it, one for the referendum and one as a lobbying resolution. So we were going to propose that we have an opportunity to work with Supervisor Kelly and maybe take a look at making some of those changes.
Sure. Good.
All right, yeah, we probably will deal with.
Okay.
We were just looking for information, but it's not seen. All right, do we have any announcements? Any information? All right, let's have an update on the sports rec complex.
Okay, I have recently signed a contract with Sports Facilities Advisors. It's a national company. They've done analyses, hundreds of analyses across the country looking at the potential to have sports and recreational type complexes like the ones that we've discussed in general. This is just a preliminary step. We've talked about it with the communities, with different groups. The vast majority has been very supportive of the idea, but now we need to know if it makes good business sense and sense from a community standpoint. So what they will do is do some analyses of data that they'll have access to. They will come here and speak with stakeholders and look at the market opportunity and determine if there is an opportunity and what sports or what recreational or what civic activities would be most acceptable. So this is just a preliminary step. It's $22,500. But with this, we get tons of data, which I think will apply to the future trail studies and other future activities that we do in this county. We think from an economic development standpoint and a development of youth, providing opportunities outside of possibly drugs and those types of things, we think it's worth doing this initial study to see if it would be viable here.
Is this the only committee that you're addressing that other than the county board, but is there a specific committee that's an advocate for your overall proposal that potentially is coming up so that we could get a proper proper resolution in order to fund this type of thing? Or
well, this type of study it's within my jurisdiction as the administrator. It's below a certain amount.
okay,
And with the consensus approval of the board and with the general government committee earlier in the year, we said, before we just keep fiddling with this, let's go ahead and get some good hard data that says whether or not it's a good idea.
but I guess I don't quite understand what the progression is of your funding. Are you ready to spend the money and say, hey, let's get some information? So
Yes, we've already done that. Yeah, so this is just an update per policy. If it's over 20,000, I need to let you all know that I've done it.
Else? Great. How about an update regarding the Fair Society?
Is there any update with the fair MOU?
No, I haven't had any. The last communication I had with Attorney Newhouse was forwarding to him our rules of order and the statute as it relates to our budget process and why it ends in November. And he thanked me for that information and said he was going to follow up with his clients. And that was before the fair. So it's been a while since I've heard it.
I think our agreement at the county board and the committee of the whole discussion was to bring this up into the budget process.
Did receive the invoice for the bleachers for the fair. That's been processed along with the latest utility bill. The roof was completed and installed before the fair on the admin building.
I've been a little, that's on a few things, but how did the fair turn out? Did anybody have any type of a report?
That would be my question. Do we have any numbers? I mean, we
Yeah.
got money invested. We gotta have some kind of
The,
analysis, right, Mr. Chair?
we sent obviously several departments, the highway department, the environmental services division, the health department. We had booths set up there. Anecdotally, the crowd and the response and the acceptance of what we did were very positive. I read in the paper, the Leader, yesterday that they estimated about 40,000 people attended. So the turnout sounds to be very good.
I was thinking with the weather and that, it must.
I think that might be
close to a
slightly
record.
above average. If I,
I didn't-
yeah.
I think the all-time high record was 42,000.
Yeah, she thinks it probably beat it.
Okay,
We'll see if they give us a report.
that's,
Yeah, okay.
We gonna do the presentation, West Central Regional Planning, or we doing that with general government?
Yes, we were going to do that with general government, so I asked her to be here around 10.
What do we got on creating a redistricting?
I can start with that. So just to start off, redistricting is done every 10 years following the census. It's usually done in a 180-day cycle, starting in March after the official census results come in, and then it ends in September. So there were delays in the Census Bureau with collecting and calculating those results due to COVID. Those results were not available in March. They are expected to be available starting Monday, the 16th. During this time, WCA was working closely with all 72 county clerks to come up with a new timeline that would allow us to follow the same process and have this, but just later in the year, but still meet the deadlines of the upcoming spring elections. So they had proposed a assembly bill to the Governor Evers, and back on July 8th, Governor Evers vetoed the bill, saying that it would result in malapportioned maps and it doesn't accurately reflect the current populations. And it violates the constitutional principle of one person, one vote. He said that delay would reason for that. So because he vetoed the bill, we're back on track, and now we have to do this in a very condensed time frame, which is why it's coming to us, and we're going to ask for some very quick decisions on this. So I just wanted to explain that a little bit. So what we're looking for today is we need to decide if there's going to be a redistricting committee. We want to set that up as like an ad hoc committee that's going to oversee the process. And if you would rather have the board oversee that process. So we would want to know what that is, and then we would need some direction. It's the decision of this committee to propose a recommendation to the board on either one. We would also ask that you provide a little guidance as to how that committee would be set up. That's what we're looking for today. Do you have any questions?
So you're saying the census isn't done? Is that why you can't?
Yeah, we have to have that census information in order to realign the maps with the new population.
Yeah. So if you had that, would it be an easy task to do it?
It is, it's not a difficult task per se, but we do need direction. And I think the most challenging thing is the notice requirements for public hearings and that sort of thing. It's a type 3 notice, so we have to have pre-printed notices before the public hearing. And then we need it all completed before November 23rd is the date of publication for our type A spring notice, which essentially posts to the public. These are the elected positions that are going to be on the April ballot, if you're interested.
Is it only for the county board? Or is it for more than that?
So, yep, it's for us, and then we work with the municipalities. They have a portion of it too. And then it goes back to the state and they do the legislative boundaries. So it's a bigger process, but yeah, yep. So it's,
Which piece are we overseeing? I mean, are we involved in the state process? Redistricting or
No,
only
not-
the county?
not, yeah, so the county and municipality would be a part that we're involved in.
So what if we did nothing? Just left the districts as they are?
We can, but we need to have that official and we need to have resolutions and ordinances and we need to look at it.
But without a census being completed,
I know.
what would you do?
Right.
What are you
I-
going to do?
And that's, they're expecting,
And
they are sending estimated results. It does look like they are getting closer to getting that information. And they are, the information we're hearing at this time is that Monday that information will be available. It does take the state about a week to enter that information into the redistricting LGIS system that we use to do that. Essentially, you know, the committee or the board wouldn't come up with the plans themselves. That would be staff, but we need to know what are your priorities. You know, we have a list, that sort of thing. So we know, you know, how many ideas, how many different drafts of redistricting plans you want to look at doing. It doesn't look like there's a great variation in the estimates that we're getting. It looks like the population for the entire county estimated has increased by 881 people.
Further, as long as they're not all in one spot.
Right.
No, they're pretty spread out, is what I
Yeah.
saw.
Yeah.
So,
Unless someone's got something, I think the county board should get the reports and I don't think we need to make up another committee.
I don't think so.
I don't either.
Keep going
We're
when
not
you
gonna
get,
change much, I don't
unless
think.
you need something from a committee or.
It doesn't make any difference. The bonus to having a committee is that it allows, it doesn't matter who makes up the committee. It can be supervisors, it can be citizens, it can be a mixture. You know, there are pluses and minuses to both of them. A lot of people feel like most counties are going forward with having a committee to do this so that it is a bit more impartial than having county board. I mean, although they do ultimately sign off on it, the people that are directing are more directed in the community. So that's the portion of the redistricting committee. I did look at Carol Wondrow when she had done the redistricting 10 years ago. They did have a committee set up of 9 members. There were 3 supervisors and then 6 citizen members, as well as the county clerk and somebody from the GIS and mapping department. So that would be that bonus.
Was that one, excuse me, is that when Don Getchell was chair of the committee?
I don't remember,
10 years.
I don't remember who was chair, but this is when it went from 23 supervisors to 15 supervisors. That was
That
when
was
the
a
term-
fairly major redistricting.
That was major,
This
yes.
this isn't, I don't find this is
I don't
any
either.
major at
You do
all.
need to make
No.
a decision on if you want to keep it with 15 supervisors. I mean, that's,
Wow. Then there's enough of a change to have to redraw the lines.
Only if someone, Malia, what did they do last time? Did someone make a challenge?
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't the supervisors that wanted to reduce, it was one person that started a.
It's a referendum.
yeah,
Munson.
I had looked through it and
Yes.
they did this.
Munson,
yes,
yeah.
23 to 15.
And then it got on the ballot and it passed, so we had to do it.
Yeah.
But now unless that's coming again, that they wanna go to
Back to
11 or
23.
whatever it is, or back to 23. Unless you feel you need a committee to help, otherwise, I don't.
so I think the question, I guess, for you all would be, with this new census data that's going to come out, you're going to see where the population is, and we can look at it on a map. They ask us to keep it at about, what, 3,000 per
Or-
district. So what it would entail is this committee or this board will decide where are we going to adjust the district boundaries. I mean, the goal is to not create a gerrymandering odd shaped district, keep them as,
Yeah, I think it was too, not to split like Amory with two or
Yeah.
three or four
Right.
different supervisors.
Right.
To try to leave the towns and villages stay together, be represented.
The biggest thing, we'd have to have Brad, GIS, and then we have that map just pulling up a little.
Right.
There, the district map, see where the numbers change.
Right.
Unless one changed 5,000 or something, otherwise it's gonna be pretty minimal numbers.
As far as what I've seen, the numbers look pretty much the same. You know, presenting one of the plans that we present, we do have to present multiple plans. You know, but presenting a plan that doesn't have many changes different from this would definitely be something that we were considering doing. So, you know, that's what you can do too. We just have to give you guys some options.
Maybe at the committee of the whole, we could do that.
I think one of
Chair,
the-
Chair.
To simplify it, to moving on.
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think right now we're very much within the Wisconsin County guidelines. I remember when first got on, we were right around 1,800 was our guideline for number of people in the district. And then the guideline the last time was to be right around 2,500 in a district. But previously, we pretty much went by townships. And then maybe sometimes in the northern part, there were two townships together. So the last time our guideline, I believe, was right around 2,500. And with a probably up to 300 maximum differential. The one thing it did change the last time was like Farmington, Osceola, Alden, Village of Osceola. We were all close to 2,500. But what it did was the last one, it split everything. Town of Farmington is also part of Alden. It split Alden right in half. And
Garfield.
yeah, like I got part of 3 townships where really before that, like I say, there's a municipality, about 5 municipalities. We're right about at 25.
Not moving any township lines or anything like that, and the municipalities do have their portion where they'll have to take care of their wards themselves, you know, as far as elections and that sort of thing. So they'll be doing that portion. It'll come, we finish with the first part and propose a tentative plan. We present, you know, 3 ideas to the board. They will pick one that they want to move forward with. We'll have a public hearing on that. At that time, that'll go back to the municipalities. Well, and we do take into consideration those municipal guideline boundary lines when we do the redistricting. So that tentative plan will go to them. From there, they'll do their portion and look at their ward lines. They'll come back, that information will come back to us. Have time to make any changes, and then we'll move forward with the final plan. We'll have a public hearing on that one.
It doesn't look like there's any of the townships, our southern ones have increased probably like 200 to 300. Where it is gonna affect is like the St. Croix Falls and Osceola, they're gonna have to increase the ward. But that's their problem. In the real, we're gonna be pretty much.
What's your time schedule?
So
This handout that,
that's kind of, yeah, our time schedule there. I came up with, and this is tentative. We can kind of
the time you want.
change it a little bit.
Yeah, I read that.
So the end, what's determining the end date is that November 23rd publication of the type A notice. So I called around to our local legal newspapers that we have to publish that in. And with it, taking into consideration a little time to prepare the notice and their publication deadlines, that would bring us to the last day of finishing it. Would need to be done by November 10th. So that everything we would be able to meet all statutory deadlines.
All right, well, someone moves on making a committee.
I think we need one at this time, yeah.
If I can just, so it's on record, we would need to amend the agenda for the county board to add this to the committee of the whole, so we can start that process.
I think that's what I hear him saying is
Yeah.
committee of the whole, they'll decide there if we want to do this by supervisors or do we want to create a new committee? Given the condensed amount of time, we need to take that into consideration. So I think if we can decide Tuesday, then you'll still be on schedule to get all these things done.
So Malia, do we have to reaffirm the number of supervisors?
I don't believe so.
Only if someone brings it up?
Right, you could certainly, I mean, if there was some internal supervisor that wanted to bring it up, then the county board could on its own. But there's no-
Otherwise,
I've not heard of anyone wanting to change the number from the board.
all right.
So Mr. Chair, then, do we, as an executive committee, have a recommendation then not to have just the county board as the head of a committee? Do we make that recommendation, Mr. Chair?
I think our recommendation is that this be discussed at committee of the whole. And they make the decision. So we're just moving it to committee of the whole.
So that it can be discussed by everybody. That would make sense.
You need you need motion to say that, but otherwise the committee of the whole doesn't even know that we discussed.
By consensus, I think.
If it's on the agenda of the committee as a whole, there's no reason for us to send it forward with
Yeah.
any recommendation. That
And if we had the chair of the county board here, we'd know whether.
You want it.
We'll know.
After the 5 of us will sign it, that's the third, and it'll be on there. He doesn't want it. You can override him.
All right, now we can have a discussion on resolution 3821, Board of Election, Conformity and Integrity.
Can I ask, were you thinking like at line 24, that would be pulled out as a lobbying resolution? And then 30 would just stay with the regular resolution?
Pardon?
Change the should to shall. There's a resolution saying that it should be placed, doesn't actually command.
Yeah.
The place.
Yeah.
I think that was Shabana's.
Yeah, yep.
Shabana's
So I guess it was kind of our office just had a couple of questions about it. It's gonna go, the gerrymandering resolution went through the general government committee. So I didn't know if it was gonna stay at this committee or if it was gonna be moved to a different committee. And whichever committee is gonna oversee it, since it's not gonna be taken care of, we're actually talking about the November 2022 election. It's over a year away. That maybe we would just be able to take some time and work through those fine details with Supervisor Kelly and present it to the board at a later date.
And I'm fine with that.
Otherwise, I can go through the pieces that I can go through those specifics if you want.
Better to have them split so we know. Try to sit here and then we split it.
I'll work with the clerk and
Split it.
that makes sense.
Right now, we have the whole resolution going forward.
Correct.
This time.
Maybe on the next or on the work plan.
Plan.
There's no action for us to take on this.
No.
They wanna
That's a-
work on it more.
Stands on its own.
And I'll get some time set up with you so we can do that. Okay, thank you.
Well, I guess our next item on the agenda is to update our. So we're gonna put. Are you gonna work on it or is this committee gonna work on it?
Yes?
Yeah, on the resolution.
Oh,
Why would we put it on our
I don't know.
work plan unless we're gonna work on it? You working on it?
I thought so.
Okay. All right,
I
we're
just-
not putting it on our work plan.
No.
No,
You just bring it to us. when you're
yeah,
done.
we'll bring it when it's,
Yeah.
when we get done working on it. It'd be
So
two
so
resolutions.
reviewing it,
Yes.
we could maybe put it for review on September.
Reviewing the resolution.
Well, it might be two
We
resolutions.
don't have anything to do in September.
Put it on October. We don't have to meet in September.
Well, maybe corporate counsel can provide us with some, would it be better to like postpone it or table it to a later date certain?
I don't think you would need to make any
No.
formal action because you're going to come with
Separate now.
two separate and new resolutions. I think we're treating this as it's being
Okay.
withdrawn by the submitter for reworking. Yeah.
We don't have to put it on at all. Oh, it's done.
And then it'll go back on the agenda when,
Whenever you're done.
Yep.
Then it would just come back, then we can look at it.
All right, so we are on review and update on our work plan. We're supposed, how come we didn't have the Ag Business Advisory Committee? We're supposed to discuss possible
Yeah.
action.
Yeah, we discussed that in the committee of the whole last month. And the decision then was to allow UW Extension to present to the Environmental Services Committee, which they did, to look at the new ag agent format to see if that made sense. So we are going to discuss it in our committee of the whole as the general board meeting. So,
This month.
yes, it's on the agenda. But I think the one thing that we might, of course, we have, when is our next Environmental Services Committee? It's Wednesday, so it'll be after the board meeting. But the thought was, and Mr. O'Connell, you can chime in. The thought was that we're having, some discussion. How would we create this committee? How would we select with all the different interests within ag? Then they thought, well, maybe UW Extension with their new regional ag agent, if they could develop the relationships in the county, they would be access to experts in certain fields of ag. And of course, you still have, every farmer in the county has that opportunity to speak up to a supervisor or to the, public comments or whatever. So that in the committee of the whole, we can discuss how we think this thing should be, what direction it should go.
But then, from our perspective, it was if we have an ag agent, he would go out, he'll find out if there is any problems or anything or something that has to be brought up. Then we can do a committee on that section or whatever part of it or whatever, and try to set up a committee. It's just 2 minutes. How big would it get? Whatever. It was getting pretty hard to decide how to.
It would sure be a lot easier if we had this enforced, if we had this committee right now and to look at the CAFOs and some of this other stuff that's happening. And
But how
we
big
get
is the
some
committee?
information from that committee.
Well, that's why we think the ag agent could bring that information, because the CAFO stuff, you can take 50 people from every side. Then what? It's so big. Committee and just a part of it. That would be the worst, I think. So that's what we're looking at,
You
kind
got
of.
something to add?
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah, the new business model of UW Extension is each agent, for an agriculture agent, will serve multiple counties, 2 or 3. And if Polk County chose to, subsidize that position, we would have access to farm management specialist, crops guy, dairy guy, statewide soils expert. And so with this concept of an ag advisory committee, that person, that specialist, could work with his colleagues to address any county issues. So again, using the CAFO argument or the CAFO initiative, they would serve as that role, specialist, to provide us with good information for you all to make informed decisions.
That's what we're lacking right now.
Yes.
We'd be able to access those resources for you.
Not there. Or if it is, it's not the right.
And that's because we're not paying to get that service? or-
No, they've changed their model. Their funding model now is this regional piece. So your agent does serve, all ag agents now serve multiple counties. But they're specialists in one thing, like just farm management. So if there's a dairy issue, they have the ability to access that dairy specialist who can come here to, handle a particular issue. So the days of having a full-time FTE ag agent dedicated to one county no longer exist. Instead, they have a menu of services that they provide, and hopefully they meet our needs.
And we don't have anybody
Right now.
time into that particular information
Not
that is
agriculture.
available, but we don't have anybody that
No, we have
can
one,
refer to us.
we have a half-time community development. Of course, we still have Chuck with 4-H. So yeah, it's not what it used to be.
More of a reason that we need one.
Yes, because then you can get any specialist.
I just, even in the
Why?
CAFO alone, there's some controversy between pig farmer and milk farmer. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
they've got
You
controversy.
got
that-
turkey,
that
you
should
got
be-
chickens. you got all
Should
of
be, because the misinformation is getting out there.
It's out
And
there.
good God, we got enough problems with misinformation. And let's get the facts out there, and that's about the only way I can see that it can be accomplished.
All right, how we got into this, while we're talking about our
Yeah.
work plan, I don't know. Somehow we drifted into it, but, so is this something we need to get back on our agenda to get something else going, or?
It'll be on the general government during the budget for, what is it, like 12,000? 11,500 for this guy,
More than that.
more than that. So it'll be on the general government to put it in the budget for the ag agent.
Yeah, that's one advantage of having that regional agent. They aren't as costly.
I don't think anyone's answered my question. Do we need to get this back on our agenda
Yeah.
so we can discuss it? Do we need more discussion on it?
Well, I think we're planning on discussing at the committee of the whole. And at this point, I don't think there's any need to. I mean, if the committee of the whole
Our
decides.
committee moved it on to general government for budget process. Did we not?
I think maybe, I've got a few questions and I could, moving it to committee of the whole, that's where I would ask this question.
I think that'd probably be. All right, how about subject matters for our next meeting?
Other than the ones we've discussed.
Just the ones we discussed. Well, is there any on here that the fair is gonna keep that on here, an update regarding the fair society?
I would like to see that in place.
Sports rec complex, we'll get on that.
About on that very back page, procedures, policies regarding all the MOUs. We did that. Very back page has some that maybe possible additions, it says.
Well, Mr. Chair, when are we gonna be, to answer his question there, when are we gonna be really discussing the MOUs with the fair? Since our last meetings, I think we've all got some letters from this Janice Larson. And gonna have a chance to ask some questions about some of these things that have happened.
My guess is you're talking to Malia. Not me.
About when, how do we get questions answered regarding the fair? I think just from a general standpoint, I think the decision was to discuss this as a committee of the whole at the board meetings. But to also just to kind of hold off on it until we discuss it in the budget process. So when I present my draft budget next month and then we get into the debates, that's when we'll discuss and talk about, are we going to fund the fair? If so, how much? And decide what our next steps are then.
You're not in any talks with MOUs or anything.
No, everything is kind of at a standstill. If, I could certainly just reach out to Mr. Newhouse again.
Yeah, if you recall, their last letter was, communication was, we want an answer to our demands.
They wanted it, I believe, by September.
Yeah.
And then I responded that our budget process goes until November. Then he asked why. So I provided him the information from our rules of order and the statute that talks about, if we needed to amend this year's budget, it would require a supermajority, and he thanked me for the information. So I think he understands that the soonest we could have an answer on their demands is November. And that's the way we left it. So he hasn't.
In that letter from Janice Larson, the way I interpreted, the way I interpreted that she thought that the county board was gonna go along with all the demands in that number, the 400,000 and all that. And she thought all we had to do was that the county board was, well, I'm not satisfied with listening to my constituents. The county board needs to be, have a voice in the fair. And from her letter there, we're gonna have nothing, we're signing everything back, and it was all gonna be listening to the people. The majority of the people that have talked to me thought that, hey, you guys on the county board, if you're gonna put money in it, you need something to say. But we represent the people that the Fair Association does not, in the same manner. Correct?
Yeah, I think that's what we discuss in the budget discussions on whether or not or how we would fund them.
We're identifying subject matters for our next meeting right now.
So then,
Is this something you want on the agenda so we can discuss it more?
I do.
We shouldn't really be
yeah,
diving too deep into the fair here.
so to ask a question on that, do we have procedure and a policy doing these MOUs, all of them? We have like a policy, or is that what we should develop for everyone?
With the fair,
No, with every external one,
Rod,
all MOUs.
yes.
We have a policy on that? Just like it says regarding reviews, how do we review it? Is there a procedure and a policy for every review of MOU?
Well, I think what we've talked about in the past is there's big MOUs where the county is talking about funding, and then there's other small MOUs where it's like, we're gonna cooperate with an agency to let them do a drive through something in our parking lot. So
So we should have a procedure and a policy for that somewhat.
I think we put it back, and this is something that I think Mr. Roberts put into place, was it's going to come up every year with the budget so that, those big ones, those big MOUs, so that it is reviewed. And I don't know that we've written that down in a policy. We certainly could, but that is
Probably
going to
should,
be
so that it
our
does happen.
MO going forward.
The general government does
Does
that.
the MOU itself describe what the conditions are that you're talking about reporting and things
Yeah,
like
but
that?
some are going to be much more detailed and complex
Oh,
because of the
course.
nature of them. Yeah, but yes.
some of them are in a block and some of them are individual.
All right, Tim, do you want that on our
I would like
agenda?
that, so that we could maybe have staff or Chad look at that we do make
Procedures and
in
policies.
a policy kind of, so we have something. So we have major or minor or something, divide them that way. However he says.
Okay, we'll fully discuss that then next month. Anything else on that anyone wants on the agenda? Next month. If you think of something, let somebody know, we'll try to get it on.
The committees aren't, no arguments in any of them that I know of. We know. So we're supposed to be next time.
Yeah, we haven't had anything like that going on.
No, nothing easy.
Or if we don't need to meet, we definitely can cancel the meeting. Unless we have something.
That's true.
Not enough,
Yeah, and we'll
roll it off.
keep our eye on it and I'll be in touch with you if that's okay.
Adjourn in order, Mr. Chair.
You know? The second,
I'll second.
all in favor,
Aye.
stand adjourned at 9:46.
40, 50.
So now we're gonna
Not
get this.
today.